Okay, what I've got here is a 70-pint dehumidifier that I use out in the garage. I got this thing several years ago at one of our electronics recycling there at work. Somebody junked it, and I decided to take it and tried it out to see if there was anything wrong with it, and everything seemed to work. So I thought, well, hey, this thing here would be an excellent thing to use out in the garage, so that there on days when I come home, it's raining, and I put the car in the garage and it's all wet and the humidity is up, I can use this thing and let it dry the air out there in the garage. Well, now one of the things I did find out about it, and at first I thought there was something wrong with it, that the fan runs continuously all the time, no matter whether you've got, as soon as you hit the power on this thing, whether, depending on what your settings are, the fan runs continuous no matter what. And then when I download the manual to it, I found out that that's the way they designed it. The fan just runs non-stop as long as you've got the thing turned on. Other than that, the compressor itself cycles off and on as needed. So anyway, I was using it out in the garage for several years, and then starting last fall, before it started getting cold out, I would turn this thing on to dry the air out in the garage, and the compressor wouldn't start up. Because normally the fan would come on, it'd wait a few seconds, compressor starts. Okay, and it sat there, and sat there, and sat there, nothing. Okay, then the next day it ran, because when I went to turn it on, it ran. Okay, so it was, every now and then it was getting to the point where it wasn't running right. It wouldn't start the compressor, which was aggravating me. So anyway, this year I started using it and everything seemed to be fine. Well, now it's going back to doing the same thing, but now it's keeping the compressor off more than it's turning it on. So I thought, okay, well, it doesn't seem to be like there's anything wrong, because see, here you got this little freeze control here, freeze sensor. So like if conditions, let's say out in the garage, let's say if I let it run, let's say it's 65 degrees or lower out, there's a chance that this coil could freeze up and frost up, ice up. So this thing here is to tell the board, the control board here, that we're in ice up conditions, and it would indicate that up here on the display. Well, everything on here shows that everything's running perfectly fine, but it's just not turning the compressor on. So I thought, instead of junking the whole thing, it's a control problem with the board. So I thought there's got to be an IC chip in here that controls the relays that control the fan and the compressor, which there is, because the fan has got two speeds. It's got a high and low, so there's two relays right here. That's your high and your low speed control for the fan, and then here's the relay to the compressor. So I thought, okay, there's got to be a control IC in this thing that's controlling the power to the coils to these relays, and it so happens that it's this IC chip right here. Well, as I got to following the traces, see, here we got our power transformer right here, which is a 10 volt AC transformer, and once it gets rectified here through the power supply, and then it's regulated through this transistor. Here's our filter capacitors. You got 12 volts DC. Okay, well, you got our 12 volts, and that's what these relays are. These are 12 volt DC relays for the coils that make these things activate. So anyway, as I was looking through this is the IC chip that controls these three relays for the fan and the compressor here. So anyway, here's our power going in from our power supply through here, and then you got one of the leads here going up to one of the relays, another one to the fan, and then you got this one right here. Let's see, I got a glare on that light. Okay, and then you got this pin here on this, which then feeds the power to the relay going to the compressor. So I took my alligator clip wire that's over here, and I jumped it across from, let's see, where was it? I jumped across here and jumped it to here, bypassing this chip to see if I can get the relay to activate, because the only thing I just had the AC power hooked to the transformer, just so I can get my 12 volts DC up here and see if I can get the relay to click, which it did. So my thought was that what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a wire here and a wire here, and then put a switch on the side of the unit which is going to be this switch here. Now where I'm going to put this at yet, I'm not too sure. I'll have to figure that out once I start to put the thing back together. So that way there, when this thing decides it doesn't want to turn that compressor on, I can turn it on manually through this switch. I can supply the 12 volts DC to that relay to get the thing to activate the compressor. Now I got the idea to make the videos as I've started doing this. Of course, that's usually how it works with me. And anyway, here's the compressor, or the capacitor to the compressor. It's supposed to be a 40 mic capacitor, and I did check it out, and it comes out at 41, so that's fine. Here's our capacitor inside this box here for the fan, 6 microfarads, and it checked out just right on the money there too. So everything here's fine. It's just this board just doesn't want to start the fan up. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, or I mean the compressor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these wires in, reinstall it back inside here, and then maybe I'll just give a little demo on it here after a bit on how I'm going to operate it. Because the good thing about this is, since this thing runs the fan continuously as you got it powered on, I don't have to run the risk of the fan shutting off while the compressor's running, because that would be a bad thing. So at least that's a plus. Now I'm also thinking maybe in the future I might just want to try to maybe do away with all the electronics in here. I would like to keep the display in the front just so that there I can see what the humidity level is, and maybe just put some switches on the side of the unit where I can just turn the fan off and on, and I don't know, maybe even put like one of those twist dial timers on the side of it where I can just twist it for like say 6 hours, because typically I don't let it run that long and it gets the humidity out pretty good. But anyway, I'll go ahead and get this finished up and we'll see how it turns out. I thought, you know, while I'm working on this dehumidifier, why don't I slap some 7/8 on this old radio here. Alright, I've got the wire soldered to the board. I tacked the black wire onto one of the pins coming off the relay on the coil there. And on the other side there was a part that was supposed to be here that's not on this board, so I just decided to use the open hole there to put the other side of that wire on. So anyway, all I got to do now is to get this thing reinstalled back in here where it belongs, and then we'll try it out and we'll see what happens. Okay, I got the board reinstalled, got the switch soldered on the wires here, so I guess we'll plug it in, we'll see what happens. Well, that's a good sign. Alright, get that out of the way. Let's see what we've got this thing set on. I want to make sure it's up high enough to where it doesn't start the compressor automatically. So now if this thing decides not to run this compressor, then I should be able to just flip this switch and start it. And it came on. Sounds a bit noisy. Well, of course it's got the case off of it, so it's going to sound a little louder. That's probably part of it there, the drawer. So yeah, so now if this thing decides it doesn't want to start the compressor, now I can bypass the IC chip in there and get it to start manually. Alright. So anyway, I guess it's all good. Alright, so now I've got the switch mounted into the case, got it all back together. So now it's ready to go back out to the garage. And yeah, it's a lot quieter. Now I got the case back on it. And so yeah, this will work now. A lot quieter. Of course, now here's the thing. Of course, now that I've done this, now this thing will probably come on every single time I go to use it. And so this will probably have been a waste of time, but at any rate, if it does become an issue again, then at least I've got a way to get the thing to start up and dehumidify the garage.